Hello everyone and welcome to another video on my channel PokePidge. Today I'm going to be talking through the 10 most unusual Pokemon. It's fair to say that in recent years, most particularly, Pokemon have had some very strange designs. I mean, we've got things that are based on keys, we've got a Chandelier. I mean, are these Pokemon any good? What are their origins? I mean, what are they based off of? Some of these Pokemon, for example, could have a really interesting backstory, or they could just be plain weird. Who knows? I've looked deep into the origins of 10 of the most unusual Pokemon out there, and I'm going to share my findings with you. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Number 1. Klefki.
Klefki is a keychain. It likes to steal keys off of people, mainly master keys, and it's just very strange looking. I mean, where would the origins of this have come from? I mean, it could have come from the pagan tradition of blaming fairies for the loss of small things like shoes and keys, for example. And Klefki is a fairy type, possibly an origin. As for its name origin, of course, key is English for key, but Clef is also French for key. Klefki is a Gen 6 Pokemon. Gen 6 is set in Kalos. Kalos is based off of France, so being called Klefki actually makes a little bit of sense.
Number 2. Mr. Mime.
Mr. Mime is based off of a mime artist, which in itself is very strange. Gen 1 is widely regarded as one of the best generations out there, and many people love Gen 1 and Gen 1 only. Did you know you can get a female Mr. Mime? That's right, 50-50% gender ratio as well, so you got half a chance of finding a female Mr. Mime. The gender specific aspect of its name only came in the English translations though, because in Japanese it is called Barriad. So having a female Mr. Mime in Japan actually makes sense, but because the English translation has called it Mr. Mime, having a female one, a little bit weird. You obtain Mr. Mime in Pokemon Red and Blue by trading a Pokemon for it, and when you get Mr. Mime over, it's called Marcel. This could be an obvious reference to Marcel Marceau, the mime artist of France.
Number 3. Palisand.
Palisand is just strange, really. It was introduced in Generation 7, so we haven't really got that much information on it. Its pre-evolution Sandygast makes sense. I mean, it's a ghost ground type, so it's haunted sand that's formed a sort of sand castle with a spade in its head. That makes sense. But then it evolves into this heavily built up castle. I mean, I don't understand. Palisand can manipulate its own size, as we've seen in the anime here. It's a little bit weird that Ash is in there though, because one of its Pokédex entries reads, "Buried underneath the castle are masses of dried up bones from those whose vitality it has drained." So now suddenly having Ash trapped inside a Palisand is having a bit of a sinister turn.
Number 4. Egregious.
Egregious is weird really. It's not very well known apart from the fact that it is just weird. It's a haunted sarcophagus. It's got 4 shadow hands coming out of it. Weirdly though, it can't learn Shadow Claw or Shadow Punch. He's got a shadow hand. I don't know why he can't learn Shadow Punch or Shadow Claw. It's really strange. Although it can learn Grass Knot and Shockwave. Obviously. Since the Generation 5 era of the trading card game, we haven't actually seen Egregious in any trading card series, up until recently when they've released Lost Thunder. I mean, that's a 6-year absence for Egregious. It's just been completely forgotten. It's only appeared in the games once since its introduction in Generation 5, and that's in a Mirage Island in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's a random choice of what island you're going to get, so you don't even know when you're going to get this Egregious. And not only that, it's only had 1 anime appearance. Not even any minor appearances, only 1 appearance, and that was its introductory episode. Since then, it's not returned since. It's kind of a forgotten Pokemon, and I don't particularly like that because it's actually quite strong.
Number 5. The Vanilluxe line.
Vanillite, Vanillish and Vanilluxe. They are quite interesting, believe it or not. These are regarded to be some of the worst designed Pokemon ever to have existed, because they're based off of ice creams. But that's not true. They're actually based off of icicles that are then covered in snow. You can actually see this Vanillish in the manga. Its bottom half is the icicle that hangs down and its top half is bald when it's not covered in snow. This is actually one of the first lines of Pokemon that were designed by a Westerner, James Turner, who actually originates from Britain, even though he works for Game Freak in the US. So don't bring your pitchforks out too soon, because this is the same guy that actually created Shadow Lugia, Phantump and Guzzlord. They're 3 of the best designed Pokemon out there. This evolutionary line is very much misunderstood. It's not ice cream at all, they're icicles and they just get snow covering.
Number 6. The ClinkClang line.
The ClinkClang line, which is actually really difficult to say, is one of the least imaginative Pokemon evolutionary lines to have existed. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of these either. I still use them, they're actually quite strong, but in terms of their design, it's a bit simple. Clink is just two gears that are fused together sort of in a bond type thing, and when they evolve into Clang, which is just a sound, not a name, all it does is just add another gear, and when, get this, Clink to Clang, and then it evolves into ClinkClang. Oh, great thinking there. The only thing that can save this evolutionary line, however, though, is its shiny form, because that is copper colour, and it includes green on there. And green is the colour that copper goes when it is oxidised. That's actually quite interesting. But apart from that, it's a bit of a sucky Pokemon.
Number 7. Chandelier.
Chandelier is another Pokemon that's based off of an object. It's a sentient chandelier, and it's, in theory, kinda strange. But when you look into it, you realise it's based off of a Hitodama, which is actually a blue flame that's inherited by a spirit, in this case, haunting a chandelier with the blue flames. It's actually pretty awesome when you think of it like that. Fire and Ghost are two of the most popular types in Pokemon, so when you get a Pokemon that uses both of these types, it's going to be popular, even if it is just based off of a chandelier. It's quite a strong Pokemon, it's very popular, and people should use it.
Number 8. Melton.
Melton is quite a bizarre Pokemon, partly because we don't actually know much about it, but also because it just looks weird. It's obviously got a hex nut head, a liquid mercury body, and a tiny little bit of electricity wire for a tail.
Just to add further to this point, since recording, Melton has appeared in the anime, and in the anime it loses its nut. Like, quite literally, it loses the nut around its head. It gets replaced by various things with the help of Rowlet, but yeah, quite interesting to say the least, and very much fits the bill of being an unusual Pokemon.
But apart from that, there's not really much to its design. The fact that its liquid mercury body can amalgamate with other metals and absorb them basically is actually pretty cool, and that's reflected in its evolutionary line. In the trailers we've seen in Pokemon Go, we've seen that Melton fused together to create Melmetal. I know practically we have to actually get 400 Melton candy and evolve it, because it would be weird to amalgam them together in some way. But if you think about it, getting 400 candy is just getting a load of Melton together and fusing them essentially. So it's quite interesting to see that. The bit I find weird, however, is that it's got a hex nut head, which of course is man-made, yet when it was introduced officially, it was on ancient drawings. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but thousands of years ago, we didn't have man-made objects like that. Unless, however, Pokemon is set quite far in the future. So the items we're using now are ancient items to them. So possibly all of the metal wiring and everything we're creating is actually ancient.
Number 9. The Egregious line.
The Honedge line is a very peculiar line because these are just swords that are haunted. That's pretty much it. Honedge is just a single sword with a sheath, of course. Doublade, or Doublade, whatever you want to call it, is two swords, as you can tell by the name. And then Egregious is a sword and a shield. It's got the two different forms of attack and defence. It's quite a good concept, that, actually. I do quite like that. But when you look into it, why is that a choice for an evolutionary line? It is heavily believed to be based off of the Tsukumogami, if I've said that correctly, apologies if not, which is basically when a tool is left for a long time unused and gets inherited by a spirit. So, in this example, we have got a sword that has been left for a long time unused, maybe its owner has passed away or something, and it then gets haunted. So, the Tsukumogami comes into play. The Steel Ghost type combination is actually unique to this evolutionary line, which not a lot of lines can say.
Number 10. Unknown.
Unknown is a very peculiar Pokemon. When we saw the trailer for the third Pokemon movie, everyone believed that Unknown was going to be a legendary Pokemon. But then when the film rocked around and the games came out and everything, we realised you could just obtain it naturally. It's the Pokemon with the most forms of 28. It had 26 until the question mark and the exclamation mark were introduced. Bit of an odd one, but they now exist. If you're not familiar with Unknown, they are based off of the alphabet. 26 of them, then of course the exclamation mark and question mark, so 28, which actually is a little bit strange. Why would it be based off of our alphabet when Pokemon have their own written language? We've seen it various times in the anime that Pokemon have their own written language, so why are there 26 forms of a Pokemon that are based off of the alphabet that we commonly use? Are these Unknown from a different dimension? Generation 7 has introduced Ultra Wormhole, so maybe some unknown in Johto region found an Ultra Wormhole, came through, and they're based off of our world that have since gone to the Pokemon world. But that is it. That is 10 unusual Pokemon with their backstories. Maybe you knew some of these Pokemon and you thought they were strange and you've never looked into them or given them a second chance, but me explaining them to you has made you think, oh, actually, maybe I'll give them a go. Particularly the Vanillite to Vanilluxe line. That surprised me as well. But I'm going to crack on with some more videos and provide some more content for you guys. So, until the next time, I will see you guys later.